the program Pundits on Flip TV. Yes, I'm Christian Chico. I have my wonderful guest here this morning, Mr. Matthew Bianose.
It's a pleasure.
Okay, we are going to be looking at the political atmosphere in Nigeria today, and it's very important to us. We want to demystify and look at how we can achieve better elections come 2023. We also have the Osun governor, Adeleke, who has become something to talk about in the polity today. Our main headline is Adeleke and his policies, executive orders in the state. We are having other discussions as we move on, and also if you want part of the program, you can still comment. We read out your comment so that you can join us in this conversation. Mr. Matthew, our headline this morning, Adeleke putting the wrong foot first. It's a future story from someone. I don't know whether you align that he is putting the wrong foot first.
Once again, thank you for having me. Personally, I think we are going to look at it from the angle of the legality of his action, the justification behind his action, and all that. To start with, if you look at the statement that came from the House of Assembly in that state.
Yeah, and they are all APC.
Yes.
So
no, they are not all APC. I think
most of
the leadership of the House is APC.
So you expect a political statement?
No, beyond being and looking at it from on a neutral ground, not whether the leadership.
No, someone will expect a house that is having the APC leadership.
But the point I'm looking at is, if you look at the statement that came from the House, even as they disagreed with the governor on the issue of renaming the state from state of Osun to Osun State, and from the land of living spring. So I think the issue is it borders on legality, because they say even as they agree that there's a court judgment that have said Osun State should be regarded as Osun State instead of state of Osun, that there is another appeal.
Okay. That
until all the cases are dispensed, that they will wait for the cases to be dispensed before they will maintain a position. So I think on that basis, one cannot say whether the governor is right or wrong. Since there's a court, but I don't know whether the last court judgment said that status quo should be maintained. Now, looking at justification behind his action,
okay,
I think Adeleke in the last few days have issued so many executive orders.
Yes, as a governor.
We learned about the reversal of the monarchs.
Okay.
We learned about the 12,000 workers that got sacked. We learned about the 30 permanent secretaries who were sacked. But the issue is this. Let me take it one by one. Looking at recruiting 12,000 workers, you now ask, what is the workforce strength
of Osun
State?
Yeah.
What is the revenue of Osun State? And why will a governor that have mandate to rule for 4 years exhaust the whole 4 years, and after losing an election rush into recruiting 12,000 workers?
Is it wrong?
I say rush into recruiting 12,000 workers.
So that action is
so for me, I think it was like setting a landmine for.
I thought you were looking at legality.
No, I look at legality on the part of Osun State renaming it. Then you look at legality on the angle of sacking the 12,000 workers. You see, as a government, you prioritize your action. You prioritize your spending. You look at, okay, what are we earning? What are we spending on personnel costs? So if you now look at it and understand that retrenching or downsizing will give you financial advantage, I think it is not out of place to do that. Okay. So,
sorry.
Thank you. I don't think issue of legality will come to play when it comes to, though if anyone feel aggrieved, I mean the 12,000
Yeah.
People who were sacked, if they feel aggrieved, they can approach any court of competent jurisdiction to seek redress.
Okay, that means what he did was
No, I look at justification.
under the ambit of the law.
As a government, that's what I'm trying to say. As a government, you have right to downsize if you look at your purse and you know that you don't have what it takes, and you look at the action of the government that just left office. It's not justified to say after losing an election you went and recruited 12,000 workers. I don't think it's justified by any standard.
Yeah.
Then again, look at the issue of chieftaincy, the monarch saga. I could recall that there is one particular kingdom where there was crisis to the extent that someone was alleged to have been shot dead by police as a result of that crisis.
Yeah.
So for me, you now ask, could you have served the interest of the public to give position of monarch to someone and there was a spontaneous crisis in the society? I don't think it was in the best interest of the public.
Okay.
Then the area I might not...
I see you're on the side of Adeleke.
No. The area I might fault Adeleke is the swiftness with which he suspended the managers of state electoral body.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the allegations he relied on, one begin to ask, how come you just resume office under 24 hours? You are citing negligence, partisanship and all that.
Is it not part of the system?
No, but you would have been in office, you look at the allegations, it means he have made up his mind before he even assumed office. So for me, he would have given some time to examine if he claimed to have gotten any petition. To examine, because the petition he relied on, it is on the strength of his position as a governor. So he couldn't have gotten any petition while waiting to be sworn in as a governor-elect. So having been sworn in, he needed time to receive petition before he acts. So there is no way he can tell us that he was receiving petition while he was governor-elect, waiting to be sworn in. Because his actions show that he relied on all the information he got before he was sworn in. So for me, I think it was too hasty.
APC has responded to the actions of Adeleke.
I think that action was too hasty.
And said that it's causing crisis in the politics.
I think that one was too hasty.
Okay, let's look
at
the
local government election. I think court have settled that. Because I think a court of competent jurisdiction have ruled that the action of the state electoral body in conducting the election was illegal. So to that extent, I don't think there's much we could talk about.
We still have the tribunal on, and things can change easily.
The issue is the way it stands. The constitution do not envisage vacuum.
Right.
So whether there's a pending case in the electoral tribunal should not deter the man from being sworn in.
Okay.
Because the constitution does not envisage vacuum. If the verdict or the judgment of the tribunal happens to be against him, he will give way for the person that he favors. But the way it stands today, he's a governor and he has been sworn in. And that's the current status.
Okay, majority members in the House are APC, and this governor will have to work with them. Do you see any kind of good working relationship?
Mr. Christian, to be quite honest with you, Nigerian politicians, they pander to executive, especially the legislative arm. Because let's take for instance, the issue of Imo State.
Imo State, yeah, that's what I was coming to. Because
we discovered that when Emeka Heda left office as a result of court judgment, the whole almost 80 or 90% of members of that state of House of Assembly were PDP members, including the leadership. But as soon as Hope Uzodinma was sworn in, both the speaker and all the principal officers and almost all the members defected to APC. The reason is not far-fetched, because they wanted to protect their job. In the same vein, it is not unlikely that the APC members you see in Osun State House of Assembly will start jumping ship into PDP in the near
future. It's not unlikely.
It's not unlikely. Meaning there's every possibility that they will defer to PDP to protect their job. Because the way it is,
Maybe
in
that would
Nigerian
be
politics,
after the election.
in Nigerian political landscape, the executive with so much power, and they have the resources.
Okay.
Like they say that he who pays the piper takes the tone. But in a sane society, it doesn't work like that. If you're in America, if you're a Democrat, you're a Democrat. If you're a Republican, you're a Republican, irrespective of the situation, because you own your allegiance to the Constitution. But in Nigeria, unfortunately, people owe their allegiance to Mr. President, Mr. Governor, as the case may be.
Okay, that means the coming elections, we have the governor's influence in these coming elections.
To be quite honest with you, the governor's influence has always been there. You don't take that away. Look at in 2015. Jonathan lost election because 5 governors left PDP and formed new PDP, and subsequently synergized and collaborated and later defected to APC to form APC. That is, for me, the last straw that brings the coming back that saw a Jonathan losing that election. So there's no argument.
I want to disagree
from our
with you.
point of view.
Yeah, that's your point.
There's no argument.
We have the G5, the integrity group now. Would they pull the stunt that
the question you asked Abenishu was about the influence of governors in a political landscape. But if you look at what is happening in PDP currently, the G5 or integrity group, as you may want to call it.
No, it's not as I may want to call it. That's what they call themselves.
As maybe that is okay. But the issue is this.
Don't you know that they have changed their name to integrity group?
Changing their name is another thing. Is another thing to say whether they live up to that name.
Okay.
But the point I'm trying to make is they are yet to come up with where they are going. Whether we like it or not, it's not about whether they are competent. It's not about whether they have delivered on their mandate to rule their respective states. Whether we like it or not, the governors in Nigeria have influence over the electorates.
Okay.
The reason is not far-fetched. Because these are people who have ruled their states, in some cases, 4 years, 8 years, and before they get to the position of that governor, they have held other political positions that have given them room, privilege to have funds. And in the process of administering those funds, they would have affected lives. Take for instance a governor that runs the affair of a state. You have all his commissioners,
okay,
all his head of agencies, parastatals, all the local government chairmen, their ESCO, the party, what they call party structure, the party chairman, party executive, from the local government level, state level, ward level, even trickle down to the unit level. Okay. And all this, like we are now in festive season.
Okay.
I want to tell you that the political parties benefit directly from the government during this period. Both monetary term, both rise and all that.
Okay,
so they have a way of influencing their decisions through all these incentives.
Okay, let's move on. If you're watching, you can contribute to the program. I have Mr. Matthew Obianose with me. I got it, Obianose. Okay, the All Progressive Congress presidential candidate Bola Ahmed Tinubu would not engage in a presidential debate with the Labour Party presidential candidate, that is Peter Obi, except if certain conditions are met. Minister of Labour and Employment and Chief Spokesperson of the APC Presidential Campaign Council, Festus Keyamo, gave the indication on Tuesday. Keyamo, who chastised the LP candidate for not producing any concrete blueprint, said the APC presidential candidate would not waste his time having a session without a candidate who has no manifesto to show the public.
I think, for me, I found at a situation where you shy away from the press. Because for me, I think this is an opportunity.
Let's talk about the manifesto. Does the Labour Party, don't they, I don't know if you know, but I think he's talking about if you have manifesto, we can debate you.
Let me say point clear that I am not here to defend Labour Party. I am not the spokesperson of Labour Party. So it's another thing to say whether Labour Party have manifesto. It's another thing to say come to a town hall meeting where you will be seated on a hot seat. The Labour Party candidate will be seated on a hot seat. Then the PDP candidate seated, and MPP candidate get his seat. Then you take question from the.
Why is it that you have
organizers.
only few parties attending this town hall?
Because they are the major, likely
is that not like
winners of the contest?
A kind of disenfranchised?
No, whether they like it or not, even in America, it's not only two political parties, but those are the two major political parties you have in America. So what I'm saying is, for me, if you say you are not coming to town hall meeting, this reason is not far-fetched. It's because you are not confident to defend your manifesto.
That is what you
from our perspective.
Okay.
Because if you know you are competent, you know what is contained in your manifesto, I think you should be willing to come there, to even challenge
someone that does not have manifesto.
To challenge your opponent, to question your opponent, why is it that you don't have manifesto? So shying away from sword gathering, for me, it is a testimony that the person have nothing to offer.
Okay.
Because I quite understand and I've read about what Kayamu said, that the man is busy engaging in town hall meetings. But there is difference between the town hall meeting organized by the party's candidates and the one being organized by media houses. Because the one the political party organized, you are in charge of the process. And nobody will dictate for you. But if you come to a media chat by a media house, you are not in charge of the process. You face questions, you take questions, and it will afford the media house and Nigerians an ample opportunity of doing an appraisal of all the candidates.
Not going for campaigns whereby there's no
to
feedback.
know whether you are competent, you have the capacity, you have the affability and the charisma to lead the people. Rather than putting forward your foot soldiers, your lieutenants who are defending. I'm not saying they should not defend them, but at this critical point, we need the candidate of the party to be on the hot seat and speak to issues. As we speak, we have so many issues begging for answer in Nigeria.
We have the 1.3 million.
The economy is in serious crisis. Security is another big issue. So, and we have a situation where even this government, APC government, promised to lift 100 million Nigerians out of poverty within a space of 10 years. As we speak, National Bureau of Statistics, their poverty index say that 133 million Nigerians are extra-dimensionally poor. Multidimensionally poor. So we want a candidate who will tell us the alternative policy you have to reverse that trend. Not shying away from media chats. For me, I think it's a testimony that anyone that shies away from media chat is telling us that he doesn't have what it takes to rule.
Would this media chat or town hall meeting convince you or make you make up your mind in voting any candidate?
To be quite honest with you, it will. Personally, I listened to Showore recently. And since that day, anytime I see Showore on any platform discussing, I like listening. Why? Because I see that this man has what it takes to lead. If you watch him talk, he knows what he needs to do as a president.
He's prepared.
I want to tell you true that he's prepared. It's just unfortunate that Nigerians are not looking in his direction. But watching him speak, I've seen a man that knows what he wants when he becomes president. He knows what he needs to do. So if the APC presidential candidate should avail Nigerians the privilege of hearing directly from him. Okay. Because by the time he wins the election and retire to Asurok, nobody will have an opportunity of hearing from him. His media handlers will be the one doing the job.
Like what happened?
So there's no opportunity. This is opportunity to assess his competence. That's what I'm saying.
So far, you have not assessed.
I've not heard him speak to issues. I want to see him speak to issues.
Okay, let's look at.
I'm not saying he's competent or not competent, but let me hear him speak to issues.
Okay, let's move on. We have the Minister of Finance says why we inserted 1.7 trillion naira projects in the MDA's budget. This is from the Finance Minister. Inserted the budget into 14 ministries. Is that corruption?
For me, I think it's a misnomer. Because what you do is, you look at the word best practice. How is similar thing being done in other places in the world? For me, Because I've taken pain to look at the reaction of National Assembly and what is being done currently. Because if you look at what the minister is saying, that they want to use loan to finance those budgets. Now you begin to ask, if a ministry like the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, the minister said she do not know how 206 billion was inserted in her budget. And this finance minister have come to say she's the one that inserted it and that they want to fund it through loan. The question is, if you are funding it through loan, why should a minister who will execute the project not be in the know of a project that has been inserted in her ministry? So I think it leaves more to be desired. So I think Nigerians.
So what should the House do now? Now they have discovered 1.7 trillion.
From what I think I read about what one of a House member from Edo State said, that unfortunately, that the way they manage that fund, they keep the House in the dark.
The House?
Yes, because the House normally that does appropriation should have right of oversight on all the spending when you want to execute project. But this particular expenditure, the House is not carried along because they go through the office of the Attorney General of the Federation, who coordinates it, and it has, I think that money has something to do with service-wide vote.
What?
And by the time that money is disbursed through the office of the finance minister, and the project is executed, the House do not have access to the books
of the finance minister
of all these projects being executed. So what I'm saying in essence is, if you must spend any money, let it follow through the normal process of budgetary process. Because even the service-wide vote we are talking about, by the time you now go and spend extra 3.something trillion naira, and nobody is vetting it, there's no check and balance, and saying that instead of service-wide vote, let that money come under supplementary budget, where it could be subjected to scrutiny by National Assembly that has a mandate of budget appropriation. So for me, I think it's a misnomer. That's why I keep saying that if you get the right person in that office, this possibility of fund will not be an issue. But there are so many money that is being filtered away through illegalities, and the government seems not to be willing to do anything about it. Look at the situation where, unfortunately, Mr. President we believe that we have a war veteran. We believe I have somebody who have zero tolerance for corruption. Look at where we are today. Can somebody beat in his chest and say Mr. President has represented us well, he has ruled well in terms of fighting corruption? In the face of all the revelation we are hearing all over the place? It's quite unfortunate.
Okay, we look forward to, is it the president that should wade into the crisis? Is it a crisis that the president should wade in, or the FCC should look at?
No, what I'm saying is this.
Because you said it's a misnomer.
What I say, the president have a moral burden now to say, okay, this process is not transparent. It lacks integrity. Let us subject it to a process that will be transparent, that Nigerians can see how their money is being spent. Because National Assembly have power of oversight. And if you now bring that 3 trillion by way of supplementary budget, it will not give the National Assembly the right to oversight the project that have been executed. And don't forget that almost all the areas where you assign money to in terms of service-wide vote,
okay,
that has to do with constituency shortfall.
Okay.
That has to do with emergency. That has to do with maybe areas where they don't have enough funds to execute projects. All those areas, all those ministries, agencies, parastatals have already received budgetary allocation in those areas. You are not saying that keep this money aside.
In case.
Should the case there is shortfall, perhaps in personnel, keep this 1.something trillion. And in this budget appropriation, that service-wide vote have 1.something trillion.
Okay. Okay, let's still move on. If you're watching, yes, let's get your contributions to the program.
The question is, at the end of the day, 3 trillion is not being accounted for. And if you go and check the budget performance, that area may have performed up to 95%, meaning that money has been expended. And nobody is asking questions, nobody is explaining to anyone how the money has been expended.
It is the budget for next year.
It's appropriation. It's budget for next year. It have not yet become budget. At this stage, it's appropriation bill. But what I'm saying is, service-wide vote have always been there. Every fiscal year is there. But this year's own is 3.something trillion. I think last year was not up to 1 trillion. But the question is, even if it's 800 billion, 200 billion, as the case may be, that money, the way it's being managed, is not transparent.
Okay. The non-transparency. Yeah, if you're watching, you can be part of the program. Let's get comments. We have people watching us. Let's get comments so that we can read it out, so that you will be part of what we are discussing here. We are talking. We started with Osun State Adeleke putting the wrong foot first. What he did in the state when he became governor. Less than 24 hours. Some things, some actions he took. Nigerians are reacting to it. What do you think? We also looked at, like what we are saying now, the minister pardon, he says it's a misnomer, 1.73.
No, the minister she's saying is not budget pardon. But what we are saying is that
because if he sets now, I'll come and hold Mr. Matthew misnomer. He said it is a misnomer.
It's a misnomer because what the money you are being.
I understand what you are saying. You are saying what you are saying is that there's no transparency, no accountability. There's no third party that can monitor the process.
The National Assembly do not have the leverage to oversight it, to know how the money is being spent. So for me, it's a misnomer.
In Senate climate, what should have happened at this point in time? What action?
I think the right thing to do is any money you expend, because it's public fund, the public should know, and there should be. The public should know it should be received for.
Yeah.
Not a situation where a governor would take security vote. At the end of the day, he doesn't retire it. And it ends like that.
And this has been going on and on.
Yes, of course. You budget 3.something trillion. You target service-wide vote. Constituency shortfall. At the end of the day, when you go and check the budget performance, that area may have performed to 95%, meaning that money would have been expended. And no project, you are not pointing to any project to tell Nigerians, this is what I use the money to do. So for me, it's a misnomer.
Is there any law that can criminalize those actions? The action of, especially minister?
I think what we need is the directive from the office of the president.
So it's on the table of the president?
Yes. And again, I think National Assembly can make a law to criminalize it, so that they will be compelled to come through supplementary budget if they need extra money to do any project, any project. Not hiding under.
The budget has been passed, though.
No, the budget have not been passed, even as we speak.
Okay.
We are looking at next year's budget. It's still at the level of appropriation.
Okay.
But what we are saying is, and it's unlikely that anything will change. The way the appropriation bill is, it's unlikely that that's what they are going to
pass. That's what I'm saying. That's because the way I look at it, it's on the
level of the various committees.
Yeah.
Looking at the expected expenditure of the ministries, agencies, and parastatals. We are
on the same page. The way I'm looking at it, it seems that budget is not going to be tampered with.
Of course, it may not be tampered. They are likely going to pass it the way the president submitted it to them.
This, I call it an excuse why you padded the budget. Giving the excuse, it's. We'll go on a short break. We've got a signal.